Australia Overnight, and it's time we talk media, and that means we talk with Mr. Nick Hayes. Very good morning, Nick.
Good morning, Andrew, and it's that time of the week again. This is the time of the week that I look forward to, and it comes around so quickly.
I know, and that time of the year again too, Nick, where we get towards the end of this a year, and we start to reflect on just what has happened in the way of media in the last 12 months.
Now, I know it seems a little crazy, being it's only coming to the end of November, and we've still got a whole another month to go. But it is a time of the year when we start to reflect and start looking back. What's actually happened over the year? Has there been things that have been happening a lot? Have there things that have been happening that haven't been happening quite enough? And it's the little things in media that we sort of go back and have a look at and go, what's been dominating our airwaves? What's been dominating our newspapers? And what have we been seeing on television right around the country?
Yes, true. Well, you've done here a list of what you consider 10 of the biggest, like the top 10, like in the old top 40 days, of the biggest stories of 2013, allowing for the fact there is still a month to go. But, well, and hopefully there's nothing else to add to the list, because most of these are not particularly pleasant, really. I'm just looking through them. Oh, a couple are. But we'll start off at number 10.
Number 10, well, the Indonesia spy allegations. It has just picked and got into the number 10 spot. I think we're going to hear a lot more about it over the next month. But as far as the story goes, and that's all we're talking about at the moment, is that we've been spying on our little old neighbour Indonesia, spying on the president there, and there's all the questions on whether we should be sorry for it, or should we be owning up, or should we come clean. And they're the big questions that are coming out in the media. There's a lot of things. This is probably the first international scene that Tony Abbott has been put on the front of, and look, you know, he's been handling it pretty well there, Andrew. I don't think he's been doing too badly with it, and I think we've still got a lot more runs with this to see. But it has just pipped in at 10, and I suggest there's probably more of projection that we'll see being a fairly big issue, but it's still got a lot more time to play out, that one.
A few legs there, all right. The bush, very sadly, at number 9, your media pick for coverage of the bushfires of New South Wales.
Yeah, look, natural disasters, and I've got to thank heavens that this as far as a top 10 issues for 2013, this is the only one in there, if you can take this into account for anything. But the bushfires in New South Wales really did stop us for quite a period of time there, and we were concentrating and hoping that everything was going all right there for our friends in New South Wales. Those bushfires will always will rate very highly when it comes as a top issue in media. Just about the entire country covers it, and in many cases it's almost an international story as well, as many of our friends overseas start covering the fires as well. But that's come in at number 9.
Also, the Ashes, and as you point out, of course, 2 Ashes series in 1 year is quite unusual, isn't it? It's been a while since that's happened.
Look, because it's sport, sport rates very highly in the top 10 right around the country, but an Ashes series twice in 1 year, and the fact that we're going to be seeing it playing out all over summer here, and oh boy, for all the cricket fans out there, we thoroughly enjoyed the last 4 days of cricket, and seeing Australia get up on top at the Gabba. It's
quite remarkable, isn't it?
Well, it's a remarkable turnaround, because the story around the Ashes, and also too, particularly our cricketers, they haven't been the best behaving cricketers we've had for a while. They've been out at night. They've been doing things that international media has been catching up with them on. Even in the local media front, a particular cricketer, David Warner, taking on ABC journalists and also 2 newspaper journalists as far as his performance goes on Twitter. It's not a good idea. And for some reason, the Ashes bring it, either whether it was in England or whether it's here, it's been featuring quite prominently around the country, and it will always, when it's such a big year for cricket, and for us to hopefully return the urn.
This next pick of yours for the most media-saturated story of 2013, I would have put a little higher, but no, you're calling the shots here. Asylum seekers at number 7.
Andrew, you could be spot on. The asylum seekers probably would be number 4, number 5. It's probably not too far off. Asylum seekers over the last 15 years has featured in the top 4 media stories in this country.
Really?
It has been one of the most dominating issues that this country has ever seen, and short of being a federal election year, you can almost guarantee that asylum seekers could be a lot higher. And quite frankly, you could be right, Andrew. It could be sitting up around 4th or 3rd. I've put it down at 7. The only reason it's come down a little bit has been that it's come off the boil just a little bit this year, and for the majority of the year. But it's definitely one of our top issues, whether it be talkback radio issues, whether it be letters to the newspapers, and whether it be what television covers. Asylum seekers is always high up there, and I guess that sort of suggests and tells us a little bit about our country, and I guess the priorities that we do put in place. And I'd like to see that come down even further, if not even jump out of the top 10 altogether.
Yes, I know. Didn't realise they'd been there so long. Now, number 6, a happier event, William and Kate.
William and Kate, they have a baby, a royal birth, Andrew.
Little Georgie.
It's going to get the whole world stopping and seeing what's happening. It's such a great occasion, and maybe something that is a little bit, for the sake of what's happening in the top 10, a little bit of a worry that we see something as maybe as trivial as that. But it does unite a country, and Australia, even though some of us are probably heading down that path of booting out the royal crown, we get a little bit airy fairy when it comes to a royal birth, and
it's true.
And it did stop the nation, and it did most certainly did stop the English, and we got caught up in the fever as well.
Now, the next item, number 5 on your list of most covered media stories, I would have put a little lower, as distinct from the asylum seekers, which I would have put a bit high. But as I say, you are the list maker. The war in Syria at number 5.
Always dominating, and the war in Syria, it didn't matter. We've got a little bit used to the idea of what was going on in Syria and the amount of reports that go around, and we're probably even a little bit putting it aside and almost forgetting about it. It's been that dominant that we would say, well, it's almost become second or third nature to us about hearing it. It is very high. It probably could come down a couple of rungs as far as importance goes, but the war in Syria and what was being reported has been very, very heavily reported, particularly newspaper and particular radio coverage. There's always been at least 1 or 2 reports almost a day that was going around suggesting that and what was going on there. So we may have thought that it was not as dominant, but you could probably go back and count the reports. They would be very, very high.
Yes, interesting. Number 4 on the media issues of the year 2013. Yes, this one I wouldn't debate with you at all. It was quite feat. Oh, my Lord, if I read one more time about Gillard and Rudd. Yes, the ALP leadership.
Look, oh, God, I'm just glad 2013's almost over. And I'm pretty sure for Mr. Rudd and for Miss Gillard, they're probably more than pleased to see the end of this year.
Oh, wouldn't they be?
Oh, look, that whole leadership debacle that was going on with the Australian Labor Party, and Andrew, my thoughts are well known, and you know that I'm an ALP supporter, and I personally couldn't have picked the ALP to win that election, even if it became a one-horse race and that was the only horse running. Something else was going to come along and beat it, because they've been belting the proverbial out of each other all year.
It cost them government.
It cost them government. And you know what? We'll look back in history and go, what the hell were they doing? I mean, what were they doing? Because when Kevin Rudd first came in, there was a new fresh air, a breath of fresh air in Parliament, and all we could see was they were just trying to hang on to their jobs, and they did not do a very good job at it. And that's the reason why, number 4, the ALP leadership debacle, it will go down in history as one that they'll never want to repeat.
True. Number 3, getting into the serious media issues, the coverage in Australia this year. And this one, yes, we turn to sport now, don't we?
We turn to sport, and it's the ASADA investigations into all sports. Now, we've had to break this up. Sports, and we've talked about it right through the entire year, sport has been dominating our media. I think there's been more sports journalists running around, getting out of bed early, doing and filing more reports than those of political journalists, those that have been doing editorial or running any other particular field. Sport has been such a heavily dominated area this year, and for all the wrong reasons. Now, the UNSADA investigation started very, very early on. In fact, it was pretty much an agreement that when they were doing an investigation into all sports, that everyone came under the spotlight, particularly if you're an NRL supporter, and as we know, if you're an AFL supporter. It was questions were being raised very, very early. Who was using performance enhancement drugs? Who were using illicit drugs? It was a big, big question, and some of the things I think, as a supporter of a particular club, you're just hoping that your club wasn't involved, or the individuals of your club weren't a part of it. And a lot of things came to air. I have to say it was very poorly handled, Andrew. I just don't think, and I look particularly at the AFL, the way they dealt with it, I think very poorly handled. And I still think there's a lot more to come out. It's gone very, very quiet recently, but I still think there's a lot more to come out, and we'll see it possibly play out over this summer.
And keeping with sport, yes, the downside of sport, number 2 for media issues for 2013.
Look, this probably could be a little bit lower, but I don't think it's far off, and that's the AFL and the Essendon Football Club. This almost took a life of its own in the fact that, yes, Essendon Football Club was under investigation there for performance enhancement drugs being used, but also, too, the Essendon Football Club, the way that it decided to take on the AFL, the James Hird, I guess, process of denying any real responsibility, and we saw that play out in the media, whether you're in Western Australia, whether you're in New South Wales, Victoria, it didn't really matter. Everyone heard about it. I think even those in the deep reaches of Queensland, if it in deep NRL country, yes, they would know who James Hird is and what the Essendon Football Club is.
Even if they've never heard of him before 2013, they would know him.
So look, we did separate it, and look, it's a little scary when sport is in your top 3 issues of the year. But Essendon Football Club, I think they'll put that one down as a year not to repeat. And
sport is in those in that top 3, but for all the wrong reasons. And 2, number 1 with the drum roll and all, the number 1 media issue for this year, according to Mr. Nick Hayes. Well, I guess really no surprise.
There is no surprise. A federal election year, you're always going to have that as the number 1 issue. I think it was, as mentioned a little earlier, an election that just had to take place. The results were pretty much a foregone conclusion, and what we saw was just, I guess, the play out of an election that many will then look back and go, we really didn't need to have it. We already knew who was going to win. It was just a case by how far and how much. And look, pretty much right down to the very seat. It was very predictable. I think possibly the Australian Labor Party will walk away from this saying, you know what, we got out of real trouble there. It could have been a lot worse, and we almost saw the absolute annihilation of a political party, and that would have been a disaster for them, because it will probably taken, if not more longer than 10, 15 years to recover. They've still got a chance to get themselves back on track very quickly. But when you've got a federal election year, it doesn't matter whether you're picking up your local paper, your state paper, your national paper, whether it's radio, television, even in the social media and the new media formats there, it's going to be a dominating issue, and it'll always be number 1.
Now, I know before we finish, you want to send out a shout to somebody here who'll probably be listening.
Look, to Gigi. I know Gigi. I love listening to the aftermath of this interview and this segment. I can't wait to get Gigi's top 10. So, Gigi, if you're sitting by the phone right now, pencil them down. I will take them away and I will put them against my numbers, and then we'll see what we can come up with together.
Well, not just Gigi, but anyone who's listening right now, if you think Nick has missed something in the way of top media issues for the year 2013, give us a call, 13 13 32. Love to hear what you think should have perhaps been in that list or shouldn't perhaps be in Nick's list. So 13 13 32 is the number. Thank you very much, Nick, as always.
Thank you, Andrew. And just so for everyone, the iCentia that puts out the official numbers, should be out in the next week or 2. So these are ahead of their numbers, and I would suggest that, I think we're pretty much on the numbers there. If anyone else has got a bigger issue to put out there, let us hear it, because I'll put that down and we'll see where it ends up.
Thank you, Nick Hayes.
Good on you, Andrew. Talk to you next week.